We are at this unprecedented time in history. You see, modern life increasingly relies on space technology. However, the same assets we rely on are under threat from explosions, collisions, anti-satellite missile demonstrations. Now, what happens is that when these satellites are hit, they fragment, and these fragments are going so fast they can literally become like a small grenade and hit other satellites, and we will lose access to that asset. We can lose access to the entire orbit, and that's a major problem because what's really going on is that for every working satellite, there's 3 non-working satellites. And we're expecting almost a 200% increase in new satellites in the next 5 to 10 years. Instead of thinking of this as this dangerous, horrible thing, we actually envision a world where we're actually able to recycle debris. We actually think that instead of bringing it down or instead of it being a car crash waiting to happen, we can actually mine this debris and create new structures in space. But the first step of doing that means we need to move satellites from one orbit to the other. And when we look at where satellites are actually located, we see low Earth orbit, or LEO, where your International Space Station is, your communication satellites, your weather satellites, all the way up to GEO, so your geosynchronous and your geostationary satellites. And now this is where your GPS satellites are. And GPS is more than just getting you from here to San Francisco to avoid traffic. They actually has your atomic clocks, where your atomic clocks are the basis for most internet protocols and more importantly, your financial markets. So think about a minute difference between the American and European markets. You see, we're focusing on autonomous robotics because it allows our customers to comply with treaties, diagnose failures, and finally, reduce their risk. Because we're not just selling a service of moving a satellite from one orbit to the next. We're actually selling access. So in GEO, we see that there's 590 working satellites, 419 non-working satellites, and the American market is 81 satellites. Now that sounds small, but then think about it. Each one of these satellites have a revenue possibility of $1.2 billion per year. Now, when we think about this entire market and providing the secondary access, we actually are looking at about a $100 billion market for just the American market. So what are we doing about this? We're focusing on the artificial intelligence so that we can virtual prototype and have our AI figure out how to rendezvous, inspect, and finally insert a satellite into a specific orbit. Our algorithms are then able to give our customer specific information and reports about what's going on with their satellite because satellites don't have selfies. If there's any type of failure analysis, you don't know necessarily what happened. We are intelligent space, developing autonomous robotics to restructure space for prosperity. Please join us.